It's a ranking member, but boy, I thoroughly disagree with him on his statement. He spoke about the Senate bill, and I just want to briefly speak about that, even if we're digressing for a moment. The Senate bill was awful. It was terrible. In fact, the supposed conservative senator who helped to put this together is censured in his own state for what he did by the legislature there. The bill didn't finish building the wall. This terrible bill didn't expedite sending people back to the country of origin. This bill didn't maintain or actually put in place again, which worked, the Remain in Mexico policy. This bill didn't stop catch and release. That's only mentioning a few. It actually codified. It made legal what is an illegal activity. I don't get what some folks refuse to get about this. We have all the issues and the problems that we have now because we're allowing an illegal activity to take place and pretending that it's legal. It reminds me, in some jurisdictions where they're trying, liberal prosecutors, to reduce penalties from felonies to misdemeanors so they can say their felony count has gone down and that their city is getting safer. You can't codify, you can't make legal illegal activity. And that's, one of the many problems with the Senate bill. It was literally better to do nothing than to do that Senate bill. It wasn't compromised, it wasn't good, it was completely unfocused and wrong, and I think we've seen that. And that's why it didn't even come up for a vote in the Senate. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump, it has nothing to do with the House. At the end of the day, they couldn't even get it up for a vote. I know Ms. Jackson Lee, no, actually it was the ranking member mentioned Georgia. And I thought he was going to mention the case of Lincoln Riley in Georgia, innocent young college student who was murdered by somebody who was illegal and shouldn't have been on the street. It's just common sense, man. I mean, I don't know what we're doing in this country. You can't bring this woman's life back. For all the talking points you may have, she's dead. And then finally, addressing the amendment, there is a mechanism for this. And I could go through, I won't, all of the precedent in the immigration courts over and over again. We now already can detain people, especially when we consider them dangerous, who have only been accused. This is nothing new. It's nothing we haven't done before, but we need to enforce it. And if there is something wrong, if it is a mistaken identity, if it is a problem where somebody shouldn't have been accused or shouldn't be detained or shouldn't be deported, they are going to have their day in the immigration court. Due diligence will be served with this legislation. I support it. We need to pass it. I think we need to show the American people, for God's sake, that we're trying to do something to stop what's happening.
Would the gentleman yield for a question?
I will yield.
I'm very curious about the mention you made of the Senate bill that it would codify something that is currently illegal. Would you mind sharing with us what you're talking about?
Sure. I reclaim my time. It would allow up to close to 2 million illegal aliens to be processed and pushed through into our country every year. And if the president chose to, he could change the ceiling and allow more than that. Supposedly there was a maximum limit, but it gives him the jurisdiction to go ahead and actually increase that number. That's wrong. That's not what people are looking for. We need to button up the border. Once the border is buttoned up and we know that we're safer, then we can look at immigration laws and look at the areas that need to be adjusted to allow good, legal immigrants that love this country. When you see, and I'm going to talk about this later, but when you see that there were individuals in New York who were beating the daylights, a ton of them beating the daylights out of 2 cops, and then they did get arrested. They were released the next day, and as they walked out, they gave the double middle finger to the United States of America and to all of us. I mean, that's just wrong. I mean, let me tell you about, and I spoke about this last time, the legal immigrants that we want in America are people who love this country and pledge their support for the United States of America. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Washington seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am rising in strong support of my colleague, Representative Sheila Jackson-Lee's amendment. It is a very good amendment. It would simply bring the bill more in line with current law by requiring that an individual actually be convicted of or admit to committing a robbery offense in order to be subject to mandatory detention. That seems like a very reasonable amendment, and I hope my colleagues on the other side of the aisle will support it. Last month, my Republican colleagues were busy trying to deport immigrants, including lawful permanent residents, without requiring a conviction before removal. Today, they want to subject immigrants, including those in a lawful status, like DACA or TPS, to mandatory detention, even if they are never charged with a crime. When it comes to immigration, it seems that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle can only think in terms of enforcement, even though that very enforcement-only approach has proven to be wholly ineffective. Even the most draconian immigration laws have not prevented people from seeking refuge here, and expanding the mandatory detention criteria will not keep us safer. The Immigration and Nationality Act has impossible requirements that no administration has ever been able to meet, and no Congress has ever appropriated sufficient funds to detain everybody that is listed in the current mandatory detention categories. And despite that fact, my Republican colleagues' answer is they want to expand those categories. Under this bill, a wide range of people, including DACA and TPS recipients, would be subject to mandatory detention simply for being arrested for a robbery offense. It doesn't matter that these individuals may never actually be charged with a crime, or that their arrest could be a case of mistaken identity, as the ranking member described. Arrests due to mistaken identity are bad enough, but as Mr. Massey discussed in an earlier iteration of this markup, there are real concerns about racial disparities in the development of artificial intelligence and facial recognition tools. In one particularly egregious case, a Detroit woman was arrested for robbery and carjacking after she was improperly identified by an automatic facial recognition search. At the time of her arrest, she was 8 months pregnant. The police handcuffed her in front of her crying daughters and her fiancé and held her for 11 hours before she was released on a $100,000 bond. Prosecutors did not dismiss the case against her for another month. If the woman had been on DACA or TPS, under this bill, ICE would have been required to pick her up upon her release, and her son would have been born in immigration detention. And this is all despite the fact that she did absolutely nothing wrong. This bill is a very serious and broad expansion of current law. It's also unnecessary, by the way. Immigrants who admit to or are convicted of serious robbery offenses are subject to mandatory detention under the Immigration and Nationality Act, and there's no justification for an expansion that mandates detention for those who are simply arrested or charged with robbery. People are often wrongfully arrested, or they're arrested and never charged with a crime. Right now, ICE is detaining more people than Congress has authorized funds for. Even still, this administration, like every other administration before it, is not even close to detaining everyone in the mandatory detention categories. I also worry that this legislation will make communities less safe. Under this bill, an individual that is subject to mandatory detention would have an immigration detainer placed on them so that they can be picked up by the Department of Homeland Security. For this to work, local law enforcement agencies would have to hold the immigrant until ICE is able to take custody. Local law enforcement agencies, however, need to have the trust of all of the members of their community, including immigrants, to effectively do their job. But that trust can be eroded if state and local law enforcement officers are viewed by the immigrant community as working on behalf of ICE. The Major Cities Chiefs Association has specifically addressed this issue, stating that lack of trust in local law enforcement can, quote, result in increased crime against immigrants in the broader community, create a class of silent victims, and eliminate the potential for assistance from immigrants in solving crimes or preventing future terroristic acts, end quote. Instead of working together on a bipartisan solution to fix the broken immigration system, here we are marking up a bill that has zero chance of becoming law. I hope my colleagues will work with us to pass this amendment and to accomplish a real goal of addressing immigration instead of passing more flawed bills like this. I yield back.
Yields back. The gentleman from North Dakota is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know who's subject to mandatory detention? Anybody charged with robbery in federal court. U.S. citizen, non-U.S. citizen, anybody. It's a presumptive detention hold. Like it or not, illegal immigrants who are in this country are under the subject of federal jurisdiction. This isn't changing or expanding the law. It's allowing another federal agency to enact the law in the same way as which the federal court system does. That is the only difference. You want to talk about pretrial release reform in federal court, I'm your guy. Like, I'll sit down and work with anybody. But the reality is, if you're charged with robbery in federal court, you are going to be detained. The only difference here is we're asking another federal agency to apply the law in the same exact manner in which the federal court system applies the law. That's it. They are under federal jurisdiction. We wish they weren't. We wish they weren't here illegally, but when they are, they're under federal jurisdiction, not just the state in which they're in. All we're doing is applying the same rule to them that we apply to anybody else who is charged with this crime in federal court. Sure, we're moving it from one agency to the other in case they're charged in state court instead of federal court. If you're talking about wrongful detention, innocent until proven guilty, mistaken identity, I think there's a lot of people sitting in federal detention all across the country right now that would love to have that conversation because they don't get out.
Yeah.
There is no bond in federal court. You're either released or you're detained. All we're doing is saying that if you are an illegal immigrant and there is jurisdiction over you federally, we're going to treat you like anybody else who's arrested and charged federally. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Who seeks recognition?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't know where to begin. I almost don't know what to say. I mean, so let's think of some of the statements that were made on the other side, supposedly factual statements. Our cities are safer now because our borders are open. That was one of the statements, basically. That we're safer now, that we have statistics, that the crime...
Would the gentleman yield?
I will not yield. I need my time.
Nobody said that, to be very clear.
I need my time. Yes, it was stated that the crime rate has gone down because of the open borders. Let's be serious in what was said. I did. We can review the recordings of it. Open borders don't make us safer. Your own FBI director, the FBI director said we're in a clear and present danger because we don't know all of the individuals who are coming into this country. And you know, maybe crime rates can be adjusted too because we're letting people go the next day. We're changing because of very left-wing activists, prosecutors, and attorneys generals. We're changing felonies to misdemeanors. But you know, if we want to say that, and we believe that, maybe we should speak to the family of Lincoln Riley, to her family, and what happened to her in Florida where she was beaten and murdered. Maybe we should speak to the Washington State Trooper over the weekend, and his vehicle was crashed into by illegals, and he was killed. And both of these had priors. They had committed acts before but were released. Maybe we should talk to the families of the NYPD officers that were beaten overwhelmingly because they had about a dozen illegals around them and they had no recourse. Maybe we should talk to the people in New York and in other cities whose school children are being removed from schools because their illegals are being temporary housing into where they are. Maybe we should talk to the people that live around tent cities that have cropped up across the country. Maybe we should talk to the people in my district where they were told that there might be as many as 60,000 illegals going into the Atlantic City airport because they didn't know what to do with them. Come on, we're denying common sense. Things have gotten worse.
Chairman, can we have order in the chamber?
Things have gotten worse. Everybody knows it. Every resident of this country, every citizen of the country feels it. Regardless of how much we talked about it, we can't make people believe that isn't something that isn't true. It is true. It is a problem. It's a real big problem. It's true that illegals were wearing Biden t-shirts at the border as soon as he got elected to be the president of the United States. It is true that Biden repealed all of the actions taken by President Trump and changed the entire dynamic at the border. We feel it, we see it, we hear it. America hears it, and regardless of how good you tell us it is, and how wonderful it all is, and how great it all is, people don't believe it. And the Senate bill, a few Republicans in the Senate said this bill was good. They couldn't even get the bill across the finish line because it was so bad, because it would use amnesty as a tool to allow these individuals to get into the country. And there was discussion that they would be giving apps on their phones so they knew where they were, or devices. Come on. It didn't have the stay in Mexico policy. And you know what? You know what would happen with a real president? You go to Mexico, you talk to them the way it happened in the past and say, if you don't straighten this out, because Mexico doesn't want them, because Mexico has borders, better borders than we do, you go to Mexico and say, they're gonna stay in Mexico, or you're gonna send them back, or you're gonna have some tariffs or taxes that you're not gonna believe. So we still do, in that Senate bill, in actual fundamental truth, would have catch and release. If we don't have Title 42 anymore, that was allowed to expire. We're not finishing building the wall anymore. That wasn't done. The Senate bill stunk. It wasn't good. Tell the people the truth. It was something to make us feel good, to pretend that we did something, but we didn't. That's why Republicans in the House of Representatives opposed it, and plenty of Senate Republicans did as well. So the bottom line is, there's a real problem here, and we're trying to deal with it as best we can. Unfortunately, our president currently does not. He could put executive actions in place today and change all of it, but he will not. So here we are, trying to hobble together the best that we can in different pieces of legislation to try to stop the bleeding. Let's tell the truth. I yield
Gentleman's time
back.
has expired. Any further members seek recognition? Gentleman from Georgia is recognized.
Thank you so much. I'd like to yield my time to my colleague from Texas to oppose all of these alternative facts that we continue to hear. And I think the real problem that's posed right here today is that my Republican colleagues continue to give misinformation. And I'd really love to hear from our colleague from Texas who lives there daily, who has been engaged in this fight ever since we've been in Congress. And she is highly respected and revered for understanding the true depth of what's happening at the border. And I think that we need to once again let her be given the time and effort to dispel the alternative facts, and I yield to.
Thank you, Ms. McBath. You know, we have members of the audience sitting in this hearing, and I hope you're seeing what is actually unfolding here before you. We had a Republican colleague just now claim that on this side of the aisle we said that well, I can't remember exactly what it was, but basically that we said things are safer because of an open border. I don't think you've heard any single one of us, especially during this hearing, say at any time the word open border. Never said that. We could rewind the tape and you would not hear that. But that's part of the challenge that we face today. And it's part of the challenge really that we face in this Congress. There are serious people wanting to solve some of our serious challenges. It is very hard when there are folks on the other side of the aisle who refuse to even tell the truth. Going back again, I can't believe I keep having to fact check on the Senate bill, but I think it's important because it provides an example of the lengths that some will go to basically deny the truth. The Senate bill, again, which was called one of the harshest border bills in history, not by Democrats. It was Republicans who called this Senate border bill the toughest bill on the border ever. One of our colleagues just said that it created amnesty. No, I mean, that's part of why you heard us laughing. No, like, it couldn't even be further from the truth. In fact, many Democrats were upset because it offered no legal pathways. It was all enforcement. The other thing that my colleague on the other side of the aisle said was the Senate bill failed because it was bad. They started criticizing it before the text was out, before the text was even published. And they did it because former President Donald Trump told them to. So they followed orders, and they were loyalists because Donald Trump said, I want the problem, not a solution. And they said, okay, we're with you. And week after week, we hear lie after lie after lie. Hard to solve big challenges when that's the way that Congress works for half of the Congress. I'm going to yield back to Ms. McBath, and hopefully there's some time for my colleague.
I yield the rest of my time to my colleague, Pramila Jayapal.
Thank you. I just wanted to make the case, rewind the tape here. One of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle said, cashless bail is the reason all these cities have so much crime, and then read through a list of cities and said, how did that all go for you? So I responded to that question. It had nothing to do with open borders. I talked about the cities that he mentioned and said, actually, crime is lower in those cities. I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record another article called Migrant Crime Wave Not Supported by Data Despite High-Profile Cases.
Without objection.
Thank you. And then I would just like to say that my colleague from Mr. McClintock said, actually made the case that I think is important to the detail of the bill, the policy of the bill, which is that the Immigration and Nationality Act has impossible requirements that no administration has ever been able to meet. No Congress has ever appropriated sufficient funds to detain everyone listed in the current mandatory detention categories. And my colleague said there are all these other categories, and robbery is part of them. Convictions with robbery is part of them. And despite that, my Republican colleagues want to expand mandatory detention for those who are only arrested or charged. And so it makes absolutely no sense when we're already not able to detain people. That's under Donald Trump, it's under Joe Biden, it's under whatever Republican or Democratic president is in place. I yield back.
Without objection, any prepared statements that our witnesses may have will be included in the record. I'd like to welcome our first panel, Representative Van True and Representative Jayapal from the Committee on the Judiciary. Representative Van True, I would welcome your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to respond very quickly to my good friend, Mr. McGovern, yeah, Republicans are frustrated. We're tired of it. The American people are tired of it. We're sick to death of it because it is time to really do something. H.R. 2 was legislation that brought us back to where we need to be and really did something. The Senate bill is a nothing burger. It doesn't do anything to realistically make the situation better. And one other remark was that Laken Riley was a prop. She's not a prop. She's a human being that lost her life needlessly, didn't have to lose her life. Whether it's the state trooper in Delaware or countless other individuals have lost their lives, their family have lost them. This is no joke. She's a human being that suffered and then died because this issue hasn't been dealt with properly.
Mr. Chairman?
Now I'd like to...
I just want to correct the record. I didn't say she was a prop. I said that the Republicans were using her as a prop.
Nobody's using her as a prop, believe me. And if you were to ask her family, they're thankful for what the Republicans are doing. Give them a call. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to testify regarding Resolution 1065, which denounces the Biden administration's disastrous immigration policies. Just over 3 years ago, Joe Biden took office as President of the United States. Immediately on day one, he began upholding his campaign promise to reverse Trump-era immigration policies. On day one, he issued executive orders that sent the world a message: come one, come all, the border is open. Anybody can come in. He used his executive authority to stop border wall construction. He rescinded the Remain in Mexico policy. He prevented the removal of any illegal alien, and he blocked ICE and Border Patrol from enforcing immigration laws and doing their job. In the weeks and months that followed, President Biden terminated effective policies that were aimed at preventing fraudulent asylum claims, ended catch and release, and increased criminal alien removals. It's fact. His only justification? Donald Trump did it. It must be bad. I'm going to reverse it. And what the result of Joe Biden's radical and dangerous systematic dismantling of these policies? The biggest influx of mass illegal immigration in the history of the United States of America. Nearly 7.5 million illegal aliens, and many say more, I'm going with the lowball number, have been encountered by Customs and Border Patrol protection on the southwest border. There have been 37 straight months with more than 100,000 southwest border encounters. The Biden administration has released more than 4.5 million illegal aliens into our American communities. We have been at least 1.8 million known gotaways have avoided apprehension altogether. We don't know who they are, where they're going, what they're up to, what they are doing. At least 340 illegal aliens on the terror watch list have been encountered by Border Patrol along the southwest border, and who knows how many more got in. And Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, that the folks on the other side of me love to quote and say is so great, said it's a real problem and he's really concerned. It's a complete and total disaster. And this country's never seen anything like it before. And I haven't even mentioned the northern border, where there are historically high numbers of illegal aliens encountered by Border Patrol every single day. Who could have predicted these results? Well, the Trump administration did, and congressional Republicans did, and career Border Patrol and other DHS employees and experts did. They even warned the Biden transition team not to do it, not to rescind policies like the migrant protection protocols and Title 42, which they just let lapse. But Biden decided to choose policies and politics over common sense. The American people get it, and the American people are left with national security, public safety, and financial disaster that is the Biden administration's immigration policy and their agenda. After 3 years of chaos, the Biden administration seems to have finally gotten the message that our Americans, they're getting uneasy when they see mobs of illegal aliens beat up New York City cops and then get released, a good bunch of them the day later. And then some of them go on to commit other crimes. Orders around them when they came out, the double middle finger. I think that's symbolic. Watch the endless number of illegal aliens streaming across the southwest border, or when they hear the heart-wrenching details of murders of 22-year-old nursing student. And yes, we are going to bring it up because it didn't have to happen. Laken Riley didn't need to die. She passed because of illegal aliens. So after 3 years of this disaster, President Biden and his handlers have decided, well, the time is finally now to admit, something's happening at the southwest border. It's not a big deal, but something's happening. And who do they try to blame? The Congress. But the American people are not stupid. The American people get it. They know that if President Trump was able to establish the most secure border in American history, then Joe Biden, too, could use his executive authority to help secure the border. He can do it. It's been done before. He could do it now. They know that he refuses to do it. He doesn't want to do it. President Biden refuses to implement the migrant protection protocols. He refuses to stop abusing discretionary case-by-case and other parole authority. He refuses to implement President Trump's asylum cooperative so we can remove illegal aliens seeking asylum to third world countries. He refuses to expand the use of expedited removal, refuses to suspend the entry of aliens into our secure border. Insecure border is the right word. And he refuses to end catch and release. The situation is not hard to fix. The groundwork was laid out by the Trump administration. The success was easy for everyone to see, and the numbers of illegal entries now compared to the last administration proves it. To the everyday American, the answer in the border crisis is simply secure the border, enforce the law. We are a nation of the rule of law. That's what the Trump administration did. That's what America wants, and that's what President Biden refuses to do. In Resolution 1065, we affirm that President Biden has the executive authority to help control the border. It affirms that the Biden administration is refusing to use that authority. And it urges President Biden to immediately begin using that executive authority. H.R. 2, the Secure the Border Act, as passed by the House, would enhance current law to help secure the border and make sure it's under control. Senate Democrats have been refusing to bring that bill to the Senate floor for almost a year now. And by the way, their bill, we have a term in New Jersey. It's called a nothing burger. You know what a nothing burger is? It's just what it says. That's what that bill is. Don't pretend that you're doing something and you're doing nothing. It's better to do nothing than to pretend. In the meantime, President Biden should use his executive authority to ensure the national security and the public safety of Americans. He should use it to secure the border. I thank you, and I look forward to any questions that might occur. I yield back.
5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Hurst, thank you for being here. You know, I think for the folks that may be watching this at home, they might be a little bit confused, and I'm trying to organize this in my mind as well. The way the president is portrayed in your report and just how we feel about him. Was he a well-meaning, forgetful man, as you said? Or was he a man that was focused on history? Was he a man that maintained and retained these top secret documents that should have been not in his home? And was he a man that wanted to prove he was worthy to be president and that his vision of Afghanistan was better than even President Barack Obama's and that his focus on history was most important to him? Do you know which it is?
Congressman, to the extent you're quoting language from my report, I stand by the words in my report.
So you stand by that he was, and let me quote you exactly, quote, a well-meaning but forgetful old man.
I don't think those exact words appear in the report, Congressman, but to the extent that I use words similar to that effect in my assessment of how a jury would perceive Mr. Biden and the evidence relating to him, including his testimony, I do stand by that assessment.
So is it accurate to say that in your interview, President Biden retained and disclosed classified materials as a means to bolster his image as a presidential figure? And I'm going to ask you for yes or no's here because our time is so limited.
I believe words to that effect are in my report, Congressman.
So the answer is yes. Would you agree that President Biden's intent to showcase his legacy provides a motive for his actions concerning classified materials? Yes or no?
It is one of the motives addressed in the report.
Yep, to showcase his legacy. Is it accurate to quote your report that classified documents were found in, quote, badly damaged boxes in his garage near a collapsed dog crate, a dog bed, a Zappos box, and an empty bucket? Is that correct?
Those words do appear in the report.
So that's correct. The answer is yes. Are these secure locations to store classified documents?
They are not.
Okay, so we got a former vice president who is established to have willfully, purposefully retained classified documents in order to highlight his political stature and show his stature as a presidential figure. We have a former vice president who stored classified documents in very unsecured places. We have a former vice president who will not suffer any consequences for all of these actions, all because we say, well, he's a well-meaning, forgetful old man. You know, if you were kind of a well-meaning, forgetful old man that was driving a car and you forgot what you were doing a little bit and you hit somebody and killed them, I believe you'd be responsible. The law must apply, you know this, to everyone. The standard behind the decision not to prosecute Joe Biden, especially in light of Special Counsel Jack Smith's decision to prosecute President Trump for similar conduct, gives the real appearance of two standards. Just again, it's so much part of this Department of Justice. Justice for thee, but not for me. Special Counsel Hur, has any former president or vice president besides President Trump ever been criminally charged for knowingly retaining classified information after they left office? Yes or no?
No.
Would you concur that Special Counsel Smith's decision to charge a former president for retaining and disclosing classified information was an extraordinary, unusual, and unprecedented decision?
I will not comment on that matter.
Well, I'm going to comment. The answer is yes. Special Counsel Hur, these two reports are the culmination, in my mind, of the Department of Justice's two standards, and an example, again, of the Justice Department being weaponized against conservatives. You know, there's another piece to this, too. I have just a few seconds. We know that when his ghostwriter was speaking to him, he also did recordings, and when he did those recordings, it was clear. In fact, I'll try to quote this here. It was a month in 2017, a month after Biden left as VP, he was aware of top secret classified materials that were, quote, downstairs. Is that true?
That is reflected in an audio recording, yes.
It's reflected in an audio record, you know. So sometimes he may be sleepy, sometimes he may be forgetful, sometimes he may be cognitively impaired. There's no doubt about that. But man, when it came to his personal legacy, the way he wanted to be remembered, to be sure that he was a big deal, in plain English, in the future, he was willingly and knowingly breaking the law. And it's unfortunate that we have a Department of Justice that will treat one person one way and somebody else a different way. It's a sad day for America. Thank you, Mr. Hur. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The point of order. The question, gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Look, first of all, Chairman, I want to apologize that I haven't been here the whole time. We had a ceremony, Congressional Gold Medal for World War II veterans.
Congratulations.
3 of them left alive. One of them happens to live 20 minutes from me.
That's awesome.
In my district. And you want to know what America's about. God, when you sit there and listen to what they did, you do. You know, I think I have a sense of what America's about. And I'm a dentist. But you don't have to spend years of study in medical school or dental school. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it. There's an undeniable physical difference between men and women. There just is, anatomically. I'm not mentally, I don't know what people think. I have a rule of thumb for myself and what I believe should be true. I don't care what people do in their bedroom, but I don't want it forced on my kids, and I don't want to have to pay for it. This country and the left have contorted reality to a great degree, so much that a bill like this is actually necessary. Think about it. Think how hard so many of us fought that so my daughter and my granddaughter have a right to compete. Title IX, we know all this already. And to take individuals who anatomically, regardless of how they feel spiritually, mentally, whatever other way, and I can't speak to that, anatomically still have a different muscular structure, have a different bone structure, are just different. They're not women. They're not biological women. And to make our young women who need to have this opportunity to compete against them is just wrong. Women spend decades fighting for equal rights in this country, and to be thinking that we're going to take it away because some men believe they're actually women, and I'm not going to criticize them, and I'm not going to say anything about them, but it is just wrong. And we're preventing, again, women of having the opportunity they deserve. And I know you've heard this all already, but I had to get on the record for it and say what I believe. We've got to protect women's rights. To see them lose high school state competitions and championships to biological males is wrong. We've seen women lose college national championships, and it has happened. And we've seen women lose professional titles in sports like golf to biological males, and it is wrong. Enough is enough. Sometimes common sense is necessary. To hurt women in the name of social progressivism is wrong. So I don't like this amendment, and I'm going to vote no on the amendment because the bill is good. The bill is clear. It states what 99% of all American men and American women know that is true. A right that we've fought for. a right that women now have. To take that away from them is cruel, it's unjust, and it's, again, not to be repetitive, it is just outright damn wrong. And I don't know how others feel. I think I do know how some feel, but we're tired of it. We're tired of all this. I want to know that my granddaughter, if she wants to compete in a women's sport, has a fair and equal chance. That's my idea of civil rights. I yield back, Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. Well said.
That my home state, my home community, Phoenix, one of the highest per capita gun ownerships in the nation, constitutional carry, has one of the lowest homicide rates, 8 per 100,000, which is 3.5 times less than Philadelphia. And ask that to...
Without objection. Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Dr. Fitzgerald, Mrs. Fitzgerald, Ms. O'Connor, I'm sorry you have to be here, and I mean that. And you're here for a specific purpose. And I don't want us to lose what the focus of this hearing is, and we have to keep our eye on the ball. You know, politics is a nasty business sometimes, and sometimes when folks are in a corner, they want to talk about everything over here, the shiny object over here. But we really need to talk about what's happening in Philadelphia, and we need to talk about the policies in Philadelphia with this prosecutor. That's what we're here for. And I got to tell you, I live at the Jersey Shore. My district is the New Jersey Shore. I'm sure you're familiar with it. In the summertime, actually for about 5 months of the year, we're more Philadelphia and eastern Pennsylvania than we are New Jersey. We're outnumbered. And God help you, if you're a Yankee fan or a Knicks fan, you're in big trouble. I talked to a lot of law enforcement. A lot of law enforcement come down to whether it's Sea Isle City, Stone Harbor, Avalon, et cetera, Cape May. And they all say the same thing. They are afraid to do their job in Philadelphia. That's the issue we're talking about today. That's why we're here. I talk to people who live in Philly, that love Philly. It's in their blood, multiple generations, and they are scared. And they are not only, the 1,000-pound elephant or whatever. They're not all white. They're white, they're black, they're Hispanic, they're Asian. They're all afraid because violence is, we're all afraid of it, and we all deserve to live in a safe home, in a safe neighborhood with police that can do their job. And you know, we're talking about the death penalty and Donald Trump and ghost guns and George Soros and anti-Semitism. No, George Soros, the issue is he purposely and willfully has made it a goal of his to liberalize and change prosecutors throughout the United States of America, including Philadelphia, and is directly involved. It has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. We talk about political agendas, safe storage. That's not the issue today. They're important issues. Some of them are, some of them, quite frankly, aren't, but some of them are. It's not the issue. You know what the issue today is? It's enforcing the law. It's against the law to rape. It's against the law to murder. It's against the law to beat people to death. It's against the law to distribute drugs. It's against the law to carjack. It's against the law to steal it. But we are not enforcing the law in the city of Philadelphia and in many other locations in the United States of America. And we can talk about all these other issues that people are bringing up today, but that's the issue that we're here for. Larry Krasner. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it because, you know, I'm a blunt guy. I'm not an attorney, I'm a dentist. And we just say it right out there. He's a bad guy. He's doing bad things. Larry Krasner, cops are in danger because of what he does. Larry Krasner, and I hate to say it this way, I don't know how else to say it though. Your son, your husband, isn't here because of his policies. It's common sense. How can you keep leaving people out over and over and over again when they've killed and raped and stolen and hurt others? It doesn't make sense. It's wrong. All those other issues are important, but this is what we're here for. It has to stop. That's why we're having that hearing. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. The problem was created by politicians, And so now I guess politicians, we got to try to straighten it out. But this is a created problem that didn't need to happen, and it shouldn't happen. And God help you. I feel so bad for you having to sit here through all this stuff and hear it all. I know your hearts are broken, and there's no words. You know, nobody can say, we know how you feel. I don't know how you feel. I didn't lose my spouse. I didn't lose my son. So I don't know how you feel. I can only imagine it. Ms. O'Connor, can you tell quickly the impact of lenient sentencing and bail policies on your tragedy specifically? Was it those policies that caused this to happen to you?
Yes, I've said it.
Thank you.
I'll say it again. My husband should still be here.
What measures do you believe need to be enacted to make this better? I think you know the
People
answer to that.
need to be locked up and kept in jail. These males had 10 guns in the room when that shooting happened. 10.
And they're released.
And they have been released.
Talk
It
about
is
gun storage, all that.
ridiculous.
Damn it, they're bad people. Let's face it, we got to understand something in this world. There are good people and bad people. There are some bad people. Bad people need to be in jail, sometimes for the rest of their lives. So
And
they can't do this to good
agree.
people like you. Dr. and Mrs. Fitzgerald, what would you do right now if this was your world and you could change it and you could make it right today? If you had the supreme power, what would you do to change this? I know it's a hard question. The doc gave it to you.
I'll answer as well.
We'd start enforcing the law again.
Right.
There are laws for a reason. There's lawlessness in this city.
Enforce the damn law. This
Victims are
isn't
afraid.
complicated. We're trying to make it complicated, but it's not. Enforce the law. Bad people should be in jail. These are real bad people. I'm sorry to interrupt. Doctor.
I just have to tell you, this committee believes in justice, right? Part of what we have to do is start making sure that the folks responsible for facilitating justice for families like ours, and God, I just can't imagine what you've gone through as well. We've talked, but it weighs heavy on my heart. But Mr. Bucchetto got it right. He attempted to enforce ethics upon a district attorney who lacks them. Just a day ago, we were getting off a plane coming from San Antonio, Texas, and we saw a press conference. I'm sorry, we saw a presser with Mr. Krasner and Steve Keeley, a local reporter. And Mr. Krasner indicated that he was not aware of this committee meeting until 2 days ago. He said a day ago, but that would have been 2 days ago. That is patently false. And I would ask this committee to investigate that.
He should be here. He should man up and be here.
I agree with you, but I think that we have to be really intentional about what we're saying here. And this is, we have a district attorney in one of the largest major cities in the country who on television yesterday said he never knew about this meeting, right? My wife and I, on the 24th of last month, were in his presence with my daughter-in-law and about 10 of his people in his office doing the presentation that we told you about. And during the presentation, we informed him of this meeting. And we gave him a hard copy to reinforce it. And thankfully, I sent it to a few other people, so I had a record. So I'd ask this committee, if we believe in justice, to call the person responsible for ensuring that people in this city get justice on the carpet. He should be before you, or summoned before you now, and answer why he would go on television and tell the community here that he's supposed to serve, for the victims here he's supposed to serve, that lie. I can't understand how we can confuse it. We can't write it any other way. He did it, and he needs to be held accountable for it. We can prove it.
The guy who
his district attorney went on television and told the community that he represents, that he's supposed to serve, that he didn't know about this hearing, but you had told him specifically about it 2 weeks prior to him making that statement.
That
your
is
testimony?
correct.
That's your testimony, Doctor?
That is our testimony.
All right,
I'll let my wife answer as well, but please.
I appreciate you sharing that with the committee. That's important information that I think, frankly, Philadelphians need to know. And to this point that Mr. Gates and others have brought up about this effort to elect those kind of individuals to the district attorney's position, need to know about as well. Gentleman yields back. Appreciate that. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've only got 5 minutes, but I do want to pursue this issue about whether Mr. Krasner was invited.
Gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having this hearing. Ranking Member Swalwell, man, he's good at it. You got to admit, right? He is really, really smooth. So we're going to look at the shiny object over here. We're going to talk about Clay Higgins, Chairman Jordan, James Comer, Marjorie Taylor Greene. We're going to talk about impeachment. We're going to talk about January 6th. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to talk about the Department of Justice going into traditional Roman Catholic churches. I'm not going to talk about our Department of Justice going into school boards. I'm not going to speak about the Russian collusion hoax and how it was untrue and the FBI was actually the one that colluded. I'm not going to speak about Biden's FBI director saying how dangerous things are here, his own director of the FBI, because of all the undocumented illegal individuals coming across. I'm not going to speak about Mayorkas, who is knowingly, purposefully. You want to talk about why he was impeached? That's why he's impeached, because he's allowed this to happen. I'm not going to speak about Joe Biden's meetings with Russian oligarchs. I'm not going to speak about his meetings with Burisma and his son's business, or the Department of Justice working with President Biden and others to try to get a real big sweetheart deal that no other American would ever get for his son. No, let's stick to what it's about. Let's talk what this is about, because they want to pull us somewhere else. And let's be clear. When agencies delay or fail to comply with congressional subpoenas, they're obstructing our ability to legislate and address the issues affecting the citizens we serve, period. That's the purpose of this committee. That's why the chairman wisely called this meeting, because we want to know what's going on, because we represent the people of the United States of America. And when they fail to turn it over, and especially the documents relating to the southern border, they're delaying our ability to identify the many disasters that could occur, and quite frankly, the disasters that have been created by this administration. So let me talk about something. Ms. Buteau, thank you for being here. I'd like to specifically revisit a meeting on January 8th, 2024. Secretary Mayorkas, in a private meeting with Border Patrol, you know about it, admitted that more than 85% of illegal aliens encountered at the southwest border were being released into the country. That's a fact. Following the statements, the committee requested data about this alarming admittance by our own secretary. We requested it, we should get it. The American people should know. We wanted to know what's going on. Typical fashion, DHS refused to comply with these requests, and the committee was forced to issue a subpoena on April 17th, 2024. That's why we do subpoenas. It's unfortunate. Your department has assured us that it is committed to giving Congress timely, objective, and precise data on immigration enforcement. Earlier today, your staff communicated with our committee that it will be sending a production to the committee today. So I want to know, if it had it for weeks, it told the committee initially that we had to wait for 6 months. Why did it change now from weeks, and why do we have to wait to 6 months? Why are they available now and they wouldn't have been available before?
With respect to the 85% comment, I believe the department has spoken to that issue, as has the secretary. With respect to the request for information on that topic, my understanding is DHS staff and committee staff have been in conversations about producing what was requested in the subpoena, and We will continue to work through the accommodations process to get that.
Thank you for your answer. Ms. Budo, but initially we're told 6 months, and, the answers on 85%, that's such an egregious statement to make, just aren't sufficient, and that's why we actually put forward a subpoena to get the real information. And by the way, and to something that tangentially I don't have enough time to talk about, Chairman Jordan, I think it was 2 years ago, asked where the individuals who are on the terror watch list, who are they, where they are, what are they about, what do we know about them? We still haven't gotten that information, so let's understand it. Let's not look at the shiny object, look at the real world here. People on the terror watch list are in this country. We don't know where they are or who they are. We subpoenaed the information 2 years ago. We still don't have it. Why?
With respect to the TSDS, I understand that there is a great deal of interest in this. DHS is
No
a
kidding.
user of the information that is on that list. We are not the owner of that information. We have been in constant communication with staff, and we will continue to do so.
See, that's gobbledygook. No offense to you. I respect you. I'm glad that you're here. But when any Americans that are watching this, I don't know how many are, to be honest with you, they don't want to hear that answer. They want to hear the answer that I want. Where are they? What are they doing? Are we safe? That's the real deal, and we're not getting the real deal. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After that 5 minutes, I was starting to get a little sleepy. I would like to yield my time to Mr. Vandrew.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Man, here we go again. So the gentlemen, my friends from Tennessee and California and Maryland, they want us not to have our eye on the ball. They want us to look, and we talked about this before in this committee, the shiny object over here. When you're really in trouble on the other side of the aisle, when you've really got a problem, let's go after Donald Trump. Let's make it a campaign stump speech. Let's talk about what a bad guy is. Let's talk about all these different issues. That's not why we're here. Again, if we want to have a separate debate, a colloquy, a discussion, formal, informal, we'll do it, man. I'm ready to go at it. I think most of us here are. But that is not the issue. The issue is this committee feels that it needs an audio transcript because the charges, the concerns are so serious. I want everybody to understand. We're either saying that our current president is cognitively impaired, incompetent, unable to stand trial, even though he broke the law. So the Department of Justice decides that they won't go after him for those reasons. And if that's true, we need to hear the audio tape. You're going to be able to understand if he truly is that cognitively impaired, if he truly has those problems, if he cannot deal with these issues, if he didn't know what he is doing. We are going to learn a lot more. And by the way, if it's no big deal, as the other side says, because we have the transcripts, well, we do have the transcripts, so why do you care so much about us getting the audio? What's the big deal?
The gentleman yield for an answer?
I just want to finish this first. I will yield. We already have the transcript, so why don't we have the audio? Because we can find out whether he is in that much trouble, if the country is in that much trouble. This has got nothing to do with what's going on in New York. This has to do with what's going on right here in the White House in Washington, D.C. with this president. Or if he is not cognitively impaired, if he is with it, if he is capable, then he broke the law as vice president and as a U.S. senator, not allowed to take these classified materials out, kept them in a garage by his home next to a collapsed dog kennel, and then used them. I want everybody to understand that. Then used them, read them to his ghostwriter to use in his multi-million-dollar book deal. Was he competent? Did he know what he was doing when he made this deal and used these papers to make money on the presidency? That's what we need to know. That's why we're going through all this. It's got nothing to do with the other stuff. And that's what we need to find out.
Gentleman yield.
And that's why I will, in one moment. And that's why we're having this discussion. Because this committee has an oversight responsibility and needs to know that. But it's not only the committee. Most importantly, the American people need to know it. We need to know if we have an incompetent, incoherent president, or if we have a president that is being helped through the two-tier system of justice, again, just like they tried to help his son. Justice for thee, not for me. God help us, the American people, whomever are watching and listening to this, don't have those opportunities, but he keeps getting them over and over again. Which is it? I know it's a bad spot for you folks. I get it. It's a really uncomfortable place to be, but we need to find out the truth. And I yield to the gentleman from Cal. Actually, I'll yield to you, the gentleman from California.
Thank you. I just want to comment the following. The special prosecutor decided that there was no reason to prosecute for his own good reasons. He stated them in his report. He made what I regard as a gratuitous smear of the president by his comment on cognitive impairment. We will see. We don't need the transcript to see if the president is cognitively impaired. The president speaks all the time. There are going to be 2 debates. The American people can decide whether the president is cognitively impaired. They can decide whether his opponent is cognitively impaired. They're going to see plenty of evidence of that in the debates and in the campaign. So we don't need the transcript to know whether the president is cognitively impaired or not. The evidence is going to be before the American people.
I reclaim
thank the gentleman for yielding.
I reclaim my time. And look, this doesn't have anything to do with the debates, though. I get it, and I know everybody's going to enjoy them, me included. But this has to do with the actions that took place regarding classified materials. And either, as the special prosecutor said, he is cognitively impaired and unfit for trial, or he knowingly did this and made money off of it. I yield back to Mr. Nels. I think Mr. Nels yields back to me.
Gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia. Department of Justice, Office of the Inspector General, 24067, May 2024. Notification of concerns regarding the Department of Justice's compliance with whistleblower protections for employees with a security clearance. With that, recognize the gentleman from New Jersey.
Thank you, Chairman. Equal justice for all. You use those words. Like cases treated alike. You use those words. All people are treated equal. Let's just look and review a few things. Let's look at the classified documents case. One individual is Vice President of the United States, removes documents which he has no right to do, Joe Biden. He then removes documents also before he was vice president as a U.S. senator, no right to do that, doesn't have the right to declassify. Yet a special counsel is appointed, and the result of that is that, well, there's nothing we're going to do because he's a kindly older gentleman that has a bad memory and it wouldn't be a good case. And yet at the same time, a president of the United States who does have a right to declassify documents, removes them, keeps them in a secure place, has the right to do it because he was a president and he's indicted. Equal justice for all. Prosecutor Bragg, and I'm going to ask you a question about this, just your opinion. He ran for office saying he was going to put Donald Trump in jail. Before he saw all the evidence, before he knew everything about the case, before he knew anything, he ran for office saying he was going to put another human being in jail and ran on that as his platform. Do you believe that it's appropriate for somebody to run for prosecutor? And by that, also in Fulton County, Georgia, the same thing happened there with the prosecutor. Do you think it's appropriate? Do you think someone who's being interviewed for a position when they're going to be appointed, or somebody who is running for office and is going to be elected at this level of government in the judiciary should say what they want to do as far as putting somebody in jail before they've even seen the case? Is that appropriate, yes or no?
Your description of the Herr and Smith cases is inaccurate. I don't know whether your description of what the two district attorneys said.
Well, then you don't look at the news. Excuse me, Attorney General, because I only have a limited amount of time. Everywhere it was reported. It was, if you knew anything, you knew that Alvin Bragg and also, again, the prosecutor in Fulton County, Georgia, they ran on that. And that's wrong. That isn't equal justice for all. It's wrong, and this wasn't equal justice for all. And by the way, I think my rendition of what happened when the special counsel looked at that is pretty damn accurate. I even put the word kindly in there. Kindly old gentleman, forgetful. It wouldn't be a good case for that reason. Those are all accurate. But I want to ask you something else. Do you know who Jay Bratt is? I know that you do. He's a top aide to Jack Smith. And I know that you must be aware that Mr. Bratt attempted to pressure the defense attorney of a close Trump aide with a judgeship, if the attorney went along with Jack Smith's desires and his demands. Are you aware of that?
I know Mr. Bratt to be an excellent lawyer, a longtime career prosecutor, a person of high ethics. I know the issue you're talking about is disputed. Those facts are disputed in the district court in Florida, and it will be resolved by the judge in that case.
Yep, and that's why the case was stopped, because it's obviously of concern. There's something there. Are you aware that on May 3rd, Special Counsel Smith himself acknowledged in the court filing that after the FBI seized evidence and it's raid on Mar-a-Lago, that some of the evidence was altered, manipulated, or disturbed? Is that standard procedure?
I have not read anywhere where he said it was altered or manipulated. So I can't accept that characterization.
Mr. Attorney General, I want to be respectful, man. Are you living in a bubble here? I mean,
I'm not living in a bubble, but
good
your
God, it was
characterization
seen.
is
I mean,
false.
everybody saw it. Everybody heard it. Smith himself said it. That's why that case was stopped.
If you can show me where he said he manipulated the evidence, I'll have a different...
You don't like my word, but that there was some tampering, and absolutely he said that he would touch the evidence, and we don't know what level, and now Americans are concerned, God knows what level it is, and whether we'll really know the truth. And I got a question about this. Former President Trump, as you know, was being dragged through a political travesty, and you won't agree that it's a travesty, orchestrated by Alvin Bragg. How is it that a man, Matthew Colangelo, the third highest ranking individual in the Department of Justice, takes a pay cut and takes a cut in just, what it is he does for a living as far as prestige, to go and join that case? And I know you'll say you don't have the answer to that either.
I have the answer. I took an enormous pay cut to become an assistant U.S. attorney. Mr. Mueller took an enormous pay cut, both of us as partners in law firms, to work for the public good. Many people have a view about doing the public good and not caring about how much money they make.
I'm going to yield in a second, but we were lied to about Catholic churches. We were lied to about school board meetings. We were lied to about Russian collusion. We were lied to about the president's sweetheart deal. We were lied to about mishandling of classified materials. We were lied to about FISA, and I yield back.
Time of gentleman's expired. The gentlelady from Pennsylvania is recognized for unanimous consent.
Yes, I have a unanimous.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ambassador Eisen, just a thought, a comment. I know you spoke about the climate of threats, the climate of disinformation. I'm going to maintain that is not the climate that you're speaking about. You just don't want to hear the truth because you don't like it. Congresswoman Lofgren, my colleague, good person, she asked, can a democracy survive without the rule of law? Well, we know the answer, it can't. And that's what makes me sick with what's going on, because we want to speak, and it's been spoken about often here, about what people are thinking, what they're saying. Well, so I'm a little crazy, so we get literally thousands and thousands of calls and letters and emails you can imagine every single week. I pick out a handful, and I call people back. Some are Republicans, some are Democrats, some are people that don't care about either. But you know what a lot of folks are telling me? And they're not all hard Republicans. They're telling me they're scared. And the reason they're scared, and by the way, they should be, I don't make them feel good. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't say, no, nothing to worry about, nothing to see here, because they don't believe in equal justice for all, which should be for the left and the right. It should be for Republicans and Democrats. It should be for progressives and libertarians. It should be for conservatives and liberals. Equal justice for all. But that's what is making me sick, because we don't have it now. This is all about politics and money and teaching a lesson. The politics of it. The politics of it is we have a judge who's a known and strong Democrat, not just because of the contributions he made, but for other factors. His daughter alone is a major operative in the Democratic Party, millions of dollars flowing through her hands. I tell you what, you wouldn't like it if it was reversed and you had a judge that didn't recuse himself. We should have judges and prosecutors that are objective and fair, whatever political party you are, whatever persuasion you are. It's about money because if you follow the money, and politics is about money a lot, we don't like to say it, but if you follow the money here, huge contributions going to the prosecutor, coming from the far left, coming from Democrats, and he runs for office saying that he's going to get Trump. Saying that he's going to get Trump. You may have one speech where he didn't say that. There were plenty of times where he made it clear that he was the guy to make sure to go after Trump. How unobjective can you be? How wrong is that in the American system of jurisprudence? How terrible is that? And you wonder why people are worried? And let's talk about Trump for a second. You know, everybody else is. President Trump. First, they tried to impeach him, and they didn't have grounds. That didn't work. So then we tried something, and I would hope, Ambassador Eisen, that you didn't even agree with this. They try to take him off the ballot. They're scared of this guy. They try to take him off of the damn ballot illegally, incorrectly, and so the Supreme Court has to come in, liberals and conservatives, some real people from the left on that court, and say, man, this is just wrong. That didn't work. So what do you got left? You weaponize the judiciary, the only thing you can do. And what's teaching the lesson about? You know what you all, not you guys, but you know what's being done? We're teaching, I really mean this, Americans to be afraid if they differ, if they speak out, especially if they happen, in this case, to have a conservative or different viewpoint. You know, talk about those people you speak with on the phone. I do it. I really do it, because my humble beginnings as a councilman and going all through, I've held every damn office you can hold. And you know what these people will tell you? Some of them are a little nervous about putting signs up. They're a little bit nervous about giving a campaign contribution, because they're afraid they're going to go after them, because you know what they know. If they went after this man, they can go after you. Now, the right thing to do here is the judge should have recused himself. The right thing is not to have the trial in a town with a prosecutor who's made it his aim in life to go after him. It's wrong. And people are afraid they're going to go after your family, your friends, your businesses, your life. Politics, money, and teaching a lesson. And you know what? It's a tale of two prosecutors, and I'm running out of time and I want to ask a question. But this is a guy who wants to prosecute non-existent crimes, like this one, but damn it, he won't prosecute the violent crimes, and he downgrades them in the city of New York to misdemeanors. And he's causing people to get murdered and murdered and robbed and hurt. I'm only going to get one question in here, but I'm going to squeak it in. Commissioner Traynor, can you elaborate on why the FEC Commission did not move forward with an investigation? And I know we've talked about this, but I want to hear it again. The FEC, who should have been the ones to do it, they said, no, we're not going to do it because they were neutral and objective. Why didn't they do it?
The commission did not move forward with an investigation because we were asked to abate that proceeding by the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice then took over a year to conduct a criminal investigation, and then when they sent the information that they had back to us after they had declined to prosecute anyone in the case, the statute of limitations had run when it came back to the commission.
Real quick, thank you. Ms. Foley, your testimony highlighted significant due process violations. Can you just detail that a little? 3 core due process precepts: notice, meaningful opportunity to defend, and proof of all relevant facts. We only have a few seconds, if you could.
Yeah, lack of adequate notice of the charges and the basis of the charges by obfuscating a primary element of the felony falsification offense, which required that there be another predicate offense that was intended to be committed. They obfuscated that till the very end, until the jury instructions. Once they identified that in the jury instructions, it became clear that there was a second predicate that was required that Trump never had an opportunity to respond to whatsoever, much less have
Point of order,
notice
Chairman.
You know what? I yield back. And Ambassador Eisen, damn it, I wish I could have gotten to you.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman yields back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I begin, and this is not directly with you, actually, I just wanted to straighten something out. I know my colleagues, the gentlemen and the gentleladies from Georgia, Washington, California, Pennsylvania, they all mentioned Project 2025. Well, I don't know how they expect you to know about that, number one. I'm pretty damn involved. I don't really know a whole lot about it. But President Trump has made it clear, and we're going to say it again, we'll say it over and over again, that there are some things he disagreed with, some things he agreed with that he wasn't that familiar with. It was from the Heritage Foundation, and that was just raw politics, to be honest with you. It was just because 2025 has some things in it that they believe are really going to offend American people, and it very well may. And so they want to pin it on the presidential candidate. He didn't author it, he didn't condone it, he didn't put his seal of approval on it. It's getting old. It really is. We do this with other things. Just like in this committee, when anything goes wrong, anything, somehow Donald Trump's name has to be brought into it, and it gets tiring. It's politics over reality. Second thing about picking the site, I was intimately involved in the Wildwood rally, the biggest rally President Trump's ever had, biggest political rally in the state of New Jersey. I had spoken to the president about it, and he wanted to do it on the beach because we had over 100,000 people. And let me tell you, we had everybody out there because they were concerned, the Secret Service and the local police and the county police and just about every entity could be. And so they had, behind it was that iconic setting. They had the Ferris wheels on the pier and all the stuff. They had agents up in there. They had agents in the ocean, in the water, in boats. They had people coordinating, working with each other and talking with each other because they knew it was a risk. So we chose a site that was difficult. The president did, and I thought it was a great site, but nevertheless, the law enforcement responded properly. Something went wrong here. You can't blame this on Donald Trump as well. The site was chosen. It's the responsibility of those who serve in law enforcement to make sure that he was safe, period. And I'm sure you'll find out why. On another tangent here, you know, I've got to wonder how many qualified people were passed in order for Director Cheadle to get her 30% quota. That's a lousy way to run an agency, especially when it's dealing with law enforcement, to say we've got to have 30% of anything. And I worry about these practices because it's policy over protection. And Director Wray, I know that some things were left to you. I understand that. But one of your early acts on the Biden presidency was hiring the FBI's very first chief diversity officer. And since that time, and even before your time, and you're going to disagree with me, but respectfully, I'm going to disagree with you. Recruitment standards under your lead has resulted in deterioration in many areas, including physical fitness, illicit drug use, financial irregularities, mental health issues, full-time work experience, and integrity. And I know you dismissed them, but in October 2023, they are a prestigious group of retired FBI special agents and analysts both expressed concern regarding the FBI's willingness to recruit agents that, quote, I'm not saying this, they said it, not me, can't even pass the new relaxed standards for fitness, who are illiterate in some cases and need lessons, educational lessons, don't want to work weekends or after hours, their words, and have serious disabilities or mental health issues, which is not the place for them. Most of your agents are great people. I love them. I love them for what they do. I'm not criticizing most. But these new standards, don't you think this is a hindrance and reduces the morale of the vast majority of good people that you have in the FBI? And I ask you for a quick answer because I have a few other things.
So I respect our retired agents, that many of them come to our graduations now, and I can tell you emphatically that they are those who think that we have lowered our standards, whether it's on physical fitness or anything else, are mistaken.
And you can prove that.
The facts back me up on that.
The standards are the same today as they were a decade ago.
I'll give you
they've changed in some ways that are appropriate.
In fact, the physical fitness standards, depends on how far back you go, but the physical fitness standards that our current graduates have to graduate from Quantico actually exceed some of the physical fitness standards that were in place if you go back far enough with some of our retirees. But what I would tell you, I think part of the reason there's confusion, and again, I accept that these folks are raising their concerns in good faith, but we have actually access to the facts. And part of the reason I think there's confusion, just take the physical fitness thing as an example, is that before you had to pass the physical fitness test before you showed up to Quantico. Now you have to pass it in order to get a badge at Quantico. The standard hasn't changed. You still have to pass the same test, the same 12-point standard, et cetera. All that stuff applies. The only difference is you can pass it while you're at Quantico. But if you don't pass that same test that's been in place for a long time now, you don't get a badge. And we will dismiss people from Quantico, and we do, who don't pass that
Director, I know I
test.
have to wrap this up, and I appreciate that. If you could get us information that substantiates what you say, that should be easy enough to do to the whole committee, I'd appreciate it. You know, feelings in this administration are more important than functionality. It's resulted in a border crisis. We don't have time to talk about that. You've spoken out about it. I appreciate that you've spoken out about it. I think it's also resulted in shortages in our nation's law enforcement and our military, and I think it makes us less safe. So I look forward to seeing those statistics and that proof, because I have people talking to my ear that tell me otherwise, and I yield back.
Mr. Nels, Mr. Hunt, and Mr. Rulli, and then, again, I apologize for the long day and the breakup, but we'll go as quickly as we can here. The gentleman from New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To our witnesses here today, I am sorry for your pain. I can't say that I know what it feels like as a father and now a grandfather. I don't. Nobody will ever know. People shouldn't even say that in my mind. I am sorry, though. And there's no words I can say, but the worst of all of this is it didn't have to be this way. You know, I hear crocodile tears. I hear people, they should rot in hell, they should this and that. But we can fix this, and it should have been fixed, and it wasn't this way. Names like Lakin, Weston, Rachel, Kayla, human souls, human beings that were raped, that were murdered, that were disfigured, that were tortured and thrown away like garbage. And this is because, and I'm going to say it, of the Harris-Biden failure. And everybody can say what they want to over there, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And I'm sad to say this because I don't want to be mean. I do not want to be partisan, but I'm simply telling you the truth. The truth is, tens of thousands of Americans are being killed by fentanyl, and you know it. I don't have to repeat all the testimony that you all gave, and the drug flows freely through our borders. The truth is, in Aurora, Colorado, gangs of Venezuelans are taking over apartment buildings and extorting rent from people. Think how scared those people are. They're having to pay them money so that they can live safely in their own home. The truth is, in Ohio, Haitian migrants are beheading the ducks in public parks. And yes, it's weird. It is weird. But we didn't bring that weirdness here. We didn't bring that distorted behavior here. But it's forced on a small town in Ohio when 30,000 illegals have been pushed upon them by the federal government. The truth is that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden let these people in. You all remember when the administration changed and they had T-shirts on at the other side of the border, Kamala Harris T-shirts and Joe Biden T-shirts. There was a reason for that. It is tell the truth time for a change. Who rescinded the executive orders? The executive orders that Donald Trump had put in that were there to protect us. Who wouldn't finish the wall? Who wouldn't keep the Remain in Mexico policy? Who instituted catch and release into our country? Who let Title 42 lapse with no replacement at all? Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. When you do wrong, you have to own up to it and be blamed. And when our party, and I hope you'll look at old videos from the past, because this is not the only hearing we've had. We've had these hearings all across the country. When we brought these concerns up, the left laughed at us. And they said they were fabricating stories and that we were being political. This is the end result of what they did. I pray to God, and I mean this, I pray every single day. And I'm not giving you a political speech. I pray to God that Americans see and know this truth. They trusted our government. They trusted them to protect us from foreign threats. Their trust was shattered and it was destroyed by that administration. Our witnesses today, your stories, that's the truth. It's the ugly, horrible, sinful truth. The truth is, this administration knowingly, purposefully, methodically destroyed our protection at the southern border. That is the truth. They may not like it now. It's an election year. So now we care about the border. It's a lot of bull. I'm telling you the truth. Month after month, we watched year after year as millions of illegal immigrants poured into this country. We watched as tens of thousands of pounds of fentanyl poured into this country, killing our youth, killing our most vulnerable, good kids that made sometimes just one mistake. And we watched as terrorists come into our country. We've got hundreds of terrorists in our country. We don't know where the hell they are, what they're doing, and what they're gonna do. And you know what we watched? Kamala Harris and Joe Biden do absolutely nothing and welcome it. Worse than all, they encouraged it. They've created this evil, and it is evil in our country. Not all undocumented are evil, but the process is evil and wrong, and it allows evil to come in. And you know what? When they asked her, and we all remember, it's on video. It's not hard to find. They asked her about it. What did she do? Do you remember? She laughed. She laughed. She said she hadn't been in Europe. She hadn't been at the border. She didn't give a damn. It was a joke. It was funny. It isn't funny. Your lives will never be the same. That's not funny. And over here, we know that we're really better and safer in the country because of illegals, and we're even told that they are better and safer than our own Americans, that our own Americans commit more crimes. And they've even said it today in this hearing room. You heard it. So I'm going to bring you real quick questions. Ms. Funder, is that fentanyl-laced pill hadn't been smuggled across our border, would your son still be here today, yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Moran, if the man who murdered your daughter had been stopped at the border, would your daughter still be here today, yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Nobles, would your daughter be here today if an MS-13 gang member with a history of murder was stopped at our border and sent back to where he came from, yes or no?
Yes.
God help us. We must be strong. We can't save these shattered lives. But if we want to do something in their name, that next bill that we finally get through and pass when we have a new president should be named for all of you. And their lives will still have meaning, and your lives have meaning. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Texas is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well said by my friend here, Mr. Van Drew.